Good evening. Welcome to the Newfane Selectboard. It's Monday, April 18th, 6 p.m. We have most of our board here in person. Myself, Angela Sanborn, Ann Golub, Katie Johnson-Applin, and Jeff Chevalier. Mike might join us by phone. I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll just get started. We're hoping to have a rather swift meeting because there's snow in the forecast and we would like everybody to get home safe and sound. So are there any additions or amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll go right to the scheduled members of the public, and I'll turn it over to Anne for introduction.
Sure.
Thank
We've
you.
got Steve and John here joining us on Zoom. Hi, Steve. And we have Jane Douglas here as well. And they're here to talk to us about the DVFiber broadband rollout, and specifically focusing on the request for ARPA funding to help support the rollout of the broadband. So, who should we turn it over to?
Me, I guess. First.
Go for it.
Me, I guess.
Glad to have you here tonight.
Well, first I have to say thank you for appointing me as a representative for another year. And glad you have faith in me. I'm terribly underqualified for the role, but I try, so that's it. And I would like to mention Ed Collins has volunteered to be an alternate, so if you'd like to appoint him tonight. Here, sign yourself in. Oh. It would be appreciated. That way we have another person in case I can't make it to a meeting. DVFiber has been going for over a year now. Great guns. But, let me see. In 1994, Tim Berners-Lee founded the World Wide Web Consortium. That's how new the internet is, 1994. And the crazy guy gave it away for free. He could have earned billions in royalties and patents, and he signed them all away. So we have the internet for free. And it's become something that you simply have to have. Besides electricity, if you don't have internet in your house, you are cut off from the world. So, COVID certainly showed how desperately needed it was for schools. Kids couldn't go to school without being able to, email in their homework. Businesses, I don't know how many people worked from home, a lot in this area. I was very lucky that the last 15 years of my working career, I worked from home because I had a really good internet connection at my house in South Newfane. I didn't have to drive all the way to Keene every day. So it's really, especially in these days when we're trying to convince young people to stay in the area, we want to convince them that they can have a really good job and live in Vermont and raise their kids here and not have to move to a big city somewhere else. The one thing they have to have in their home is a good internet connection. And Vermont has taken the bull by the horns and really tried to make that happen now through the CUDs, of which DVFiber is the one for this area, for Windham County. And Windham County and more. But the problem is that just because we build it, they may not come, because there are going to be costs involved, costs that the state is covering a good deal of, the federal money is covering a good deal of, but when we get down to actually hitching people up, the cost for you to attach to the cable, hopefully it's not going to be too much, but it depends on how far you are from the pole. And so some of these, somebody living on a cabin at the top of a hill 3 miles from the pole, that's going to be a very expensive connection. And so what we're hoping is to find some way for the town to use some of the ARPA money to help us not only get it built, but to attach the people who maybe can't afford that connection. It's not everybody in this town is very wealthy. I think, if I'm right, I think there are a little under 300 people in town who have no internet connection right now. We have the former Southern Vermont Cable, the Comcast connection, is for about 70% of us, give or take. So it's not a lot of people. I don't think we'd be asking for a lot of money to try to help get them connected, but I'm not sure. We tried to figure out, you know, DVFiber, we're making it up as we go. And in many ways, we don't know how much the connection costs are going to be. I mean, they are going to happen within a couple of years here, but so we're not real sure how much money we say we should ask for, but we would be really appreciative if we could set aside some kind of chunk of, I don't know, $5,000 or $6,000. I don't know what. I really don't know. But in order to help the people who really can't afford that last connection, because we will build it, but we've got to get them to connect to it. And if they can't afford it, we'd like to help. So I don't know. Stephen's got more to say on that than me, but as to how we're going to get it connected. But I feel very strongly that it's very important for everybody to be attached to the internet, because kids today don't have a chance to have a really good future, especially if they want to stay here. And we really like our young people to stay here. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Stephen.
Welcome.
Oh, great. Thank you for giving the opportunity. I'm sorry I'm not able to attend there immediately. I just finished 2 remote interviews of prospective executive directors. So I'm kind of tied down here with the computer, and my connection is on a DSL. So if I, get frozen up, it's not because I'm trying to ignore you. I do want to welcome your questions, but I did want to just reinforce a couple of concepts there that Jane hit upon. That is the only reason the CUD, you joined the CUD as the town of Newfane, is to get internet high-speed broadband connection that is future-proof, really. It's going to carry on for quite a long time before we outgrow it. That is the capacity of fiber, which appears to be unlimited. And that's a good public investment. And that's why we have the benefit of some ARPA money from, actually Recovery Act money to the state that's gone to the state. And it's been allocated to the different CUDs by virtue of the number of people we have to connect that are unserved or underserved. And the specific statistics for your town are that there are 290 such premises. Now, we don't think that that's necessarily the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but that's the table that we have to go by from the Public Service Department's recently revised Stone study. So we have proceeded to locate and agree to contract with a private partner, because we're all volunteers like Jane on the board, and none of us know how to build this thing or the details required to do it. So we have a private partner, Great Works Internet from Biddeford, Maine, and they have done this kind of a project for various communities and sectors in Maine. They're not a very large company. They are a B Corp. So that's one attribute that we appreciate. That means that they are not solely motivated by profit margin. And we will own the fiber. That is the public board, the DVFiber board entity, a municipal corporation, a unique entity across the United States, only made possible by Vermont law, that owns and controls the fiber that would be built. So your representative is very important in every town. All 24 member towns each have 1 vote on that board. And we've to date closely approaching, maybe this as early as next week, we'll approve a high-level design. But the high-level design has already been, I've been briefed on it. It's required by the state, if we're going to get some state funding, that all locations will have the capacity to reach all locations in every town, every member town. And we certainly will have to hang fiber through places where people may not be interested because they're already well served, to get to the more remote parts of towns that are unserved and underserved. I see Michael Meyer is is that Mike? He's certainly a member of your community that is somewhat distant from the center of town. I believe I've drove by his house many times on Newfane.
I am indeed, Stephen. It's good to see you. Thank you for all you're doing with this project.
North Pond Road. Okay. So I think now I'll turn it over to you for questions, but we do have a customer connection policy, which is has been adopted by the board, and that is committed to providing 400 feet of aerial or conduit underground connection to a home without additional cost. It'd be maybe there'll be a commitment fee of $50 or $100, and we haven't firmed up on that, but we do know what's going to be included in what's called a standard connection. And that standard connection will be insufficient to meet the needs of some people who are farther than 400 feet from the nearest, from the utility pole. We are on the utility poles. We have no place else to go except hanging it on Green Mountain Power poles. So that's an obstacle or challenge for people who are not of means to come up with that additional scratch to go beyond the 400 feet. And also there may be some people who, for example, mobile homes, good practice is to have conduit connection. You may not be aware of that, but there has to be an underground connection to a mobile home. In the old days, perhaps it wasn't thought necessary, but that's the case now. So that might be an expense that the owner would have to undertake. That is to provide a conduit if they want it underground. If they're not a mobile home, they can have it aerial. But anyway, those are the details, and there are 3 or 4 pages of administrative procedure that explain what the customer connection policy, the details of the customer connection policy. The second policy that has been approved is pending, and that's a customer affordability policy that's going before the board Wednesday night. And that is trying to commit the DVFiber to live up to its mission, and that is to make financial means limitations no obstacle for people to get connected. And we proposed, and there are no details on that yet, but we proposed that could be charitable giving, it could be donations from towns, it could be from individuals, it could be from foundations, and also there's a statewide nonprofit organization called Equal Access to Broadband that DVFiber is intending to collaborate with and see how that can address the issue more broadly across the state. But the real challenge for Newfane will be when the DVFiber reaches your community, which I admit will not be within the year. I think it'll be farther out than that, but it'll be before the end of 2023. Then you'll have people who want to get connected and don't have the means. And you may say, well, why doesn't DVFiber just offer free to people that are not of means? That's not a good business plan. We're advised against that. And it's much better to raise the money through charitable giving and other sources to enable those people to get connected. We will be a internet service provider, a licensed certified internet service provider. And that means that we will be qualified from the FCC to be a provider for people who need a subsidy. And that subsidy for broadband in the new rules is going to be $30 per month. So people are assured of that amount of subsidy from the federal government, but if they meet income qualifications, but that may not be sufficient for some people. And we can't predict, or we are unable to say at this time what our minimum fee would be for service. It'll be competitive for certain, but that's, that really, I can't speak with any any confidence about exactly what that is. I wouldn't want to be quoted on it, put it that way, because we still are applying for a construction grant for $10.7 million for first phase of our construction. And we hope to start that construction late spring, early summer. That won't reach Newfane though. I'll tell you what, quite candidly, you do not qualify for that grant as being a priority area because there are 6 towns that have 90% or more of their people unserved, underserved. And those are the communities that we have agreed will be built out first. That's our mission. And we don't have any other mission except to get everybody at the most affordable means possible. And without regard for profit, except that we have to keep our private partner alive. Otherwise, they can't do our work for us. So, questions?
Are there any questions? Anne?
Could you talk a little bit about the funds that you would be requesting from the town would cover the one-time fee to connect people who might not be able to afford it?
Well, I think that's the most promising and dependable investment for a select board to decide upon. I know that there were other thoughts. There certainly was originally with the VLTC, perhaps you were at that workshop, proposed that it just be donated or without restriction to your CUD to help them move along on the construction and accelerate it. But I have to say to you candidly that money is not the issue about accelerating the build out of our high level design. At this point, it really seems that the constraining point will be how fast Green Mountain Power can get the poles ready to hang fiber on. And, that might be as little as 250 miles a year. But we've met with them already, and they recognize this is a priority project, and they are doing everything they can to advise us of where to build the quickest, where the poles are the most ready, and you have the most unserved people, because they actually are have a tariff, what they call a tariff. It's a strange deal that they're kicking in $2,000 for everybody that's unserved in terms of getting them connected. Which will go quite a ways to preparing the poles for our fiber to be hung upon. Now, the other possibility is for I'm going to propose as a follow-up on this affordability policy, customer affordability policy, that DVFiber looks to ways to welcome ARPA funds from towns that are restricted to meet the gap on an income qualifying measure that will enable everybody to get connected. Now that's not an open check. You have to decide as a board how much money you want to set aside for that purpose. And I did put together a spreadsheet to estimate some of those costs, but they're based on assumptions that can change, and you can adjust that to whatever you think is your perception of the town. And you're part of a puzzle that involves 24 towns, obviously. So you should be taking care with your ARPA money for your own citizens in your town. That's what I'm advising.
So just a follow-up question then. The concept would be that we would give the funds to DVFiber, and you guys would then take on the responsibility of accounting for the individuals who need to be linked up. So it would not be our job to Well,
I think it's, I'm the moderator of Marlboro, and I'm pretty close with the select board in Marlboro, and we don't want to take on the decision of deciding who's qualified and who isn't qualified. This should be a statewide criteria across all the CUDs, and so I do think there is some merit in a select board allocating, and in fact, in your case, there is no necessity for the money to be actually present, in our accounts, because. I would think you could hold off. You can hold off on ARPA money until 2024 for allocation if you so choose. But I'm just pointing that out. It's a little different in my town, Marlboro. I know I'm meeting next 2 weeks. I'm meeting with them because they're likely to be built out pretty quickly, because I think it's 97% of the residents of Marlboro are underserved. So. Anyway, that's a good question, and I think the details of that have not been worked out. We're just beginning to wake up to the issue, and I'm going to propose to my select board that they allocate the money and then hold off on depositing or doing anything with it until they see the need. That is that people are beginning to be connected to the internet that need help.
Got it.
Thank
Katie
you.
has a question.
Yeah, would that be something that the listers who are aware of homes and their locations be able to help draft a list of people who are more than 400 feet away? And then from there, the board, your board could figure out who qualifies in your low income brackets from that list? Is that the sort of information that you...
Yeah, it's a complicated. You're on to a couple of aspects. If you want to get in the weeds on this a little bit, I can say a little more.
How to like sort through what we're allocating for our...
Yeah. Well, just to give you first of all a conceptual idea of how to approach the problem. So yes, we assume that there are some people that don't have the means to get connected. What should that assumption be? Well, generally, it's around 10 to 12% of our of our premises. Now, there are rich towns and there are poor towns, but I'm just saying average, across our CUD, that's the estimate. And if you started with that and you had, now you're not just talking about people that are underserved or unserved, you're probably talking about your whole town, and your whole town premises number is, I'm going to look on a chart here. It's around 1398. According to, let's confirm that. Nope. Okay, here. The revised one is 1,135. And of those, 290 are unserved or underserved. So you have about 26, 25% of your residents who are unserved and underserved. But you could take 10% of the total population would be, limited means. So that's about 113 people or something. And then you can take that down to, well, what's the average cost to connect? Well, the average cost to connect is $1,500. That's what DVFiber is paying on average to get people connected within that, that 400 limitation range. And in Marlboro, I know that a couple of volunteers went around the town and estimated what the distance was from the house to the nearest pole, the utility pole. And we found that about, let's see, it was conduit. We had about 25% of the people who were 178 out of 700 had conduit connection. But all of those practically, well, let's see, 75% of those were 200 feet or less. So most people don't have very long conduit. Good reason. There are a lot of rocks around. People have a hard time getting conduit to go through rocks. That's my problem. Yeah, so you can keep doing those kinds of assumptions and come up with an amount of money that might cover, if you're looking at that far in much detail. Regarding your listers, it's possible that they know that, but we really have GIS data on all the E911 addresses, that's occupied addresses, locations. Mm-hmm. And from our engineers at GWI, Great Works Internet, can really know what the distance approximately is from the nearest pole, because they also have the GIS data on the pole. They have to design everything to hang on the poles. That's all a big, massive database situation, and I'm not sticking my nose under that tent. That's somebody else's business. But I can assure you that it's done well, and it has to be corroborated, and that's how you can get your estimates. But that would only come in a town's case when it was approaching the build out that required the detailed design. See, we have a high level design that's the backbone and all the lateral branches to connect that people would connect to. That's the high level design for all 24 towns, going up all the way to Weston and all the way down to Stamford. So that gives, and up to Westminster over by Connecticut River, and if you haven't seen the map, over to Winhall and Stratton on the west, and and interestingly, it's designed in loops so that if a tree falls down and breaks that line or make it impassable for the signal, then it'll go around the other side of the loop and get to your house. That's the really beautiful design of that's the benefit of a large, broad, high-level design. It's much more sophisticated than just starting someplace and just branching out from there, like traditionally has been the case for cable or other service providers. Telephone. I don't know, did I answer the question or I just wandered off? I'm sorry.
It's okay. I kind of opened a can of worms.
I've been in a lot of remote meetings. I just wanted to relieve your listeners about the responsibility of doing that. But
Sure.
It is true that the issue of income qualifying is something that would require a level of trust by the prospective prospective customer that was of limited means. And I know that in my town, there is a Marlboro Alliance that has a food shelf and, has various connections serving the community that it's entirely volunteer and charitable giving. But in some towns, we have a better handle on that in a more grassroots way than other towns. And I can't say for your town or Wynn Hall or Weston or whatever, but it's going to be a standard means. It's going to be a standards means test. It's not it's something that the FCC uses in order for people to get a subsidy on their telephone bill or on their broadband bill now.
So sort of public information, but maybe not like.
Oh, no, it has to be kept. It has to be kept confidential in terms of the identity of the person. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a former superintendent. I'm really big on this confidential stuff about what how much people have or whatever. That's not the public's business. But you still have to operate the system based on that information in a confidential way.
Right. Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I have just one more question. So we're talking about the possibility of putting ARPA funds aside for connecting people who may not have the means to do so. And then could you talk for just a moment about, with the ongoing bills, you said that there was believed to be a subsidy of about $30 a month, but that may not be enough because we don't know all the costs yet. Do you think it is likely that funding, assuming more is needed, because I know my bill is certainly more than $30 a month. Do you think that it's likely that there would be a request for the town to assist with that going forward, or do you think it's likely funds will come from the state or the federal government?
Well, I'd advise my board, I'd advise you to say no. You're not going to get into a long-term deal. That's really one of the beauties of the ARPA money is that it's an opportunity to invest. It isn't it isn't the direct tax base from your town. It's to be invested to the best of your select board's judgment. And so I don't endorse the idea of ARPA money going to subsidize people on a monthly basis in the town. I think that's up to the DVFiber or the CUDs. It's up, it's possible that Comcast or our competitors, CCI or whatever, could go ahead and do that for people. And I can't predict how that will get worked out, but I know that I'm eager to seek charitable giving and foundation work to make up that kind of gap. And that's what the Equal Access to Broadband 503C or whatever it's called, non-charitable organization to help accomplish this statewide, because that board was founded and that organization was founded to do exactly what we're doing, to make sure that there's no financial reason why anybody's not connected. It's not, right now it's because of your location. Doesn't matter how rich you are, you aren't going to get connected. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But just for clarity, this DSL and phone company provided service counts as underconnected? Is that what your terminology is?
Call it underserved?
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Folks who have service only through the phone company are what you consider underserved as part of your definition?
Yeah, generally, yeah. There's a lot of argument about and there's a lot of speculation about the definition. Once upon a time, anybody who didn't have 25.3 was, if they was lower than that, they were considered unserved or underserved. And some of us on DSL only had 4.1. I'm sorry, these numbers, 4 is the number down of megabytes per second, megabits per second, and one would be the number up. The second number is uploading. And most of us didn't care when we were watching TV all day, whether we uploaded or not. You were just concerned about getting the satellite image or whatever down to your house. Now with business, home cottage industries, and most of us doing these kinds of remote meetings, if my wife wanted to be on a remote meeting like right now, while I'm on with you, there's no way that we'd freeze up. There's not enough bandwidth, and that's not enough service up. And the service that I'm paying for up is 3. I don't get 3. I only get 1 if I'm lucky. And yet the government thinks that I'm satisfied because I pay for 25.3. That's what is a bit galling for those of us who've been waiting out here forever to get connected. But at any rate, the state of Vermont and the Vermont Community Broadband Board goal is, look, let's be serious about this. Let's have a minimum of 100 up, 100 down, symmetrical. If you have symmetrical service, you can go to 500. You can go to a gig. You can have on fiber, you can have an unlimited amount of bandwidth. And it doesn't cost you any more. You don't have to hang a bigger cable. You don't have to hang a bigger fiber. You just have to have more bandwidth signal driven through that fiber. So that's what the state of Vermont's goal is, to enable these CUDs to serve everybody and get a minimum of 100 and 100. Now the FCC says, well, the cable companies, let's see, 100, I think we should make it 120, 100 down and 20 up, because I think it's conceivable the cable companies could provide that. Technically, it's just that the only way to get symmetrical service at higher speeds is through fiber, and that's why the Vermont Community Broadband Board is so determined to support fiber networks being built, not wireless, not cable. They just aren't going to be the future we need. It's an amazing opportunity to invest in the future for our kids and grandkids.
I must say your command of all of this is really impressive.
Well, I
It
go
is
to a lot of
so
meetings.
much detail.
He's been working on it a long time.
It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Stephen or Jane?
Jane, do you have a map of Newfane's needs of what roads are not served currently?
We do. I'm not sure that I'm
Yeah.
allowed to share any of that yet.
Yeah, I'll help you out with that. It is available. I do think that one thing that's a little ticklish about this DVFiber is that we are a public entity, so we're obliged to follow open meeting law, all that kind of thing. We have to post our meetings, we have to have our agendas and so forth. And quite often we have to go into executive session because we would be put at a disadvantage, competitive disadvantage with the private sector if they knew everything we knew or we were discussing and what we were concerned about as board members regarding our communities and the details of those communities. However, I can assure you, we do have a GIS map, and I could provide that to the board that shows where it's different colored dots on the map for the different roads in Newfane. I do think that that's possible to be shared. Certainly not before we approve our high-level design, But I do think that that would be something that either I could share publicly or I could brief the board on that in executive session if you chose to, if you made that request. I think it's important for you to understand your town and know that. I think, and the question is whether it's available publicly or not. The information may in fact be publicly available now through the Public Service Department, but I'm not confident of that yet.
That's what we're using.
And if someone has, let's say Comcast, and they wanted to switch to DVFiber, is that an option as well once you're installing things?
Well, yes. Once the fiber is installed, as I said, we can't just hop around. We have to, this is a network that has to be like a big plumbing system where everything flows, and so you got to go on Route 30 to get up to Townsend and up to Brookline and up to Newfane and past Newfane, sorry, up to Townsend, up to Jamaica, all the way up to Winhall, Londonderry, and Weston. So we're following the main roads. We'll just be another one of those communications cables that's hanging towards the bottom of the telephone poles going along those main routes. That's what GMP's getting prepared for. So it'll go through, we'll have access. People who want will have access to that. Now, that gets me on a really sore spot. I want to share with you, as my experience of superintendent, I was in on the Obama era's Recovery Act. I've forgotten what it was called. ERA, wasn't it? I think it was, yeah, American Recovery Act. And we got $19.1 million in Windham County to connect all the schools and libraries in Windham County. That was built by Sovernet. And when I say we, it was Sovernet who got the money to build that. And I was sorely disappointed when I found out that none of the homes that fiber went by could get connected because it was a proprietary, it was a property of Sovernet, and their business model was for businesses. And to this date, Sovernet was bought by First Light. And if you call First Light and you're a resident, their residential connection, they don't want you. They're only doing business connection. And they have that fiber hanging through your town and mine. And it's not serving anybody except the business at the other ends.
That's crazy.
I'm sorry to end on a sad note like that, but that's a sore point with me. I wish I'd been a little more perceptive about endorsing that, that plan, because it was a good plan and it served our schools and libraries well, but it hasn't served the communities in the way that I thought it would be logical.
You'd probably be 10 steps ahead of where we are now.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's why I'm committed to this thing. I mean, we got to get this done right, and we got to connect everybody.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you both for your hard work and everything you're doing. It's amazing.
And can someone who is not on the select board ask a question?
Yes, of course, Michael. Go ahead.
Thank you. Stephen, what can we do as residents in remote locations to accelerate the schedule that would take us at least, you said we're not part of phase 1, but phase 2, maybe next year. What can we do to help that process along?
Well, I regret to say that there really isn't too much. It's not like the railroads that were built out west, and the towns would bid for who would give them the cheapest property tax break or give them the land to build the railroad on, and then they'd have a station in their town, and that meant survival and economic opportunity for those towns in the future. I mentioned the West because I grew up in California and I'm familiar with those railroads when riding them as a kid. But anyway, so I'm saying that lobbying isn't the issue. In fact, if I, in good conscience, thought that if everybody could start donating some money, we'd be able to build it faster, I'd advocate that. But that's not really the case that I can see at this point. But Newfane is geographically located in a place that it's hard to not pass through Newfane to get our system built. It would be impossible. So I think phase 2 is certainly obvious. And there are towns that have 97% people served and 96% and 90% served. Newfane's not that. Newfane's not that kind of town. You only got 75% of your people served. So in terms of priority for the grant funding, you know, you're coming in line sooner, and that's why you're part of phase 2. Nobody's been thinking what the distinction between phase 2 and phase 3 is. We can't use grant money in phase 3 to connect people who were already served with cable. Okay. But that doesn't mean we can't raise private funds or borrow money to do it, you know, because by then we'll have revenue from the customers we've already connected. And that's why we're starting with the towns that have, you know, close to 100% people unserved, because those are customers that have been, you know, looking for a place to get connected a long time. Now, actually, it isn't a matter of borders between towns either. It's a matter of where the power line goes and where we follow to get 120 to 220 people on the same, what's called a multi-service terminal. Thank you. Multi-service terminal. I got you. Glad you thought of that, Mike. And so what's going to happen from that terminal is that's where the line goes to your premises. And I know where you live, actually. So you live up on top of this hill, right? Yep. And in fact, the polygon or the area that may get served from Marlboro may go over into Brattleboro or over into Guilford or Newfane or Dummerston because of engineering design. You know, so it's difficult for me to say until we get to the detailed engineering how that will work. But once we have the phase 1 plan approved and we have it funded, then you'll be able to know that, when the board votes on the approval of this, certainly the board will want to know, well, I'm in Newfane, when are we going to get connected? Or I'm in Weston, when are we going to get connected? You know, are we phase 2, phase 3, where are we at? And I have to say candidly that the phase 3 situation really mostly applies to those people who we can't, you know, for whom we can't spend grant money to get them connected. We can spend money to build the fiber that will give them access eventually, but the actual connection to the home individually may require a private or charitable giving kind of fundraising in, you know, down the line, 2 years from now or something like that. We're prepared to borrow money, by the way, because we're a municipal entity and we can go to a revenue bond, but to do so, we have to have 3 years of proven revenue. So that's a funding reality. And probably the grant money will cover 60 or more % of our total cost of the project. And the total cost of the project once was 35 million, and now it's going to go up to probably, now it's pushing 50 million, 45 to 50 million. To get everybody built out. That's 900 miles of fiber.
Interesting. Why? So many of our roads
it's a big project. The first good sign is, I think next week we're going to have the first consignment, first partial delivery of the 300 miles of fiber we've already purchased, pre-purchased, because we got to get this stuff before the lead times. You know, the lead times are very long for these kind of products, especially when everybody's building at once across the country.
As I think you intimated earlier, this is not only important for those of us who live in remote locations, for their schools, for their work at home, all these other things, but the economic development of the entire town has such implications for that. If it were 100% connected, that really becomes a calling card that we currently don't have when we're trying to attract people into the community of various sorts.
Yeah, we have only to look to Brattleboro. People in Brattleboro, there are actually a surprising number of people in Brattleboro who don't have good connection, but they are, you know, that fiber is being put into Brattleboro. Unfortunately, not by us, but you know, that makes a big difference for the citizens they serve. Yeah. Brattleboro, by the way, is a member of this, an active member of this DVFiber board, and we are there. We've arranged to have a point of presence that connects to the outside world through the fire station there, a central fire station, and then we have a point of presence that is probably going to end up at Pleasant Valley at the reservoir area there, that will be able to branch out up, serve the people to the north and to the east. That's part of the high level design, which I shouldn't be talking about in too much detail, but at any rate, you got it.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation and for all you're doing to help us out. It's really appreciated.
Well, it's a great project. I appreciate all your support and I appreciate all your questions, and just keep asking and call me anytime.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can we revert back to Jean at the beginning? You had mentioned Edward Collins and asking us to appoint him as an alternate
Yes, as an alternate.
to the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he needs you have to fill out the form that gets sent to.
Want to have the form?
One out of knows.
Is there a motion to appoint Edward Collins as an alternate to the DVFiber board?
I make such a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Welcome, Edward. You are now an alternate to the DVFiber board, and we will send you a form.
Yes, and you're welcome to attend a meeting to Wednesday night at 5 o'clock if you want to get your feet wet.
There you go. Just ask Jane for the link. I mean, when we get the official paperwork, we'll have you on the list. But anyway, we'd love to have you get to know what our business is about. And that's the real way to find out what's going on, you know, in terms of strategy and decision making. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome aboard, and thank you, Jane. Thank you, John, and thank you for the future work, Ed. It's a lot of important work. If there's nothing further, we'll move on.
I'll say goodbye. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, we'll go right into the approval of the April 4th regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I make motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second. Oh, sorry.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And now, is there a motion to approve the April 13th special meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
I abstain.
abstain. Great. And then we have our April 15th condemnation hearings. Is there a motion to approve those?
Make motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstain?
Aye.
Great. And good evening, Jay. Welcome. We are up to your report.
So the arch bridge work is going well, and they've started to pour the cement for the footings. I had a meeting with Bill Jewell for the gravel pit, and he's starting the process of gathering all the information needed for the Act 250 permit. He's going to make a list for us of the stuff that we need to get together. He anticipates it's going to take 10 to 12 months to complete and get the permit, unless we run into some snag, but he's at about normal.
And Jay, just to clarify, that means we can't do any use of the property until the permit is completed.
Correct.
Okay.
Because I had questioned whether we could we're going to need some of the ditch material that's more topsoily to reclaim parts of it when we're done with it. So I thought we could start putting some there, but we can't. He said you don't want to really do anything there until we've gone through the permit process. I had a meeting today for the Newfane Village sidewalk crosswalk scoping study. We expect to have a contract for you to approve at the next meeting. We have to go back and negotiate with them a little bit. It's Dufresne and Henry, I believe, are the ones that are came out as the one that's providing the contract. The condemnation hearing went well, and I hope we can get that filed this week. We can then get the box culvert project moving forward again. It's been kind of stalled ever since we ran into the snag with the property owner, which has been better than 2 years. I think we've been kind of working on this, so it'll be good to get that moving forward again. And we have enough money in the traffic safety to order another radar sign if you want to. If so, do you want it in South Newfane near Adams Hill, where the one failed last year, or at the south end of Newfane Village?
Okay. Anybody?
I really
discuss number
appreciate
5?
I really appreciate it right at the bottom of my hill, for sure.
And there was no fixing the one that failed, because I thought you were going to.
Oh, they wanted almost as much money as just replacing it.
Okay.
And the one that failed was the one that was on the south end of the village, or?
We don't have one there yet.
We've never had one yet in the village. It was the one from South Newfane.
I see.
Right as you're coming down Jack Hill out of Eastover.
And that's the only one in South Newfane, right?
Correct.
So
There's one in Williamsville.
There's one in Williamsville, there's one in Newfane, there's one in Brookside.
There's one on South Wardsboro Road.
And South Wards. Okay, so we should probably have, I mean, that would make sense to have one at least going in every village.
Yeah.
So is there a motion for Jay to go ahead and you have to purchase and place it in South Newfane near the Adams Hill? Is there a motion?
I make such a motion.
And I second that motion.
Any further discussion?
How long do they last?
The one with the original one that we bought, which was a different company than we use now, is the one that failed, and that was a little over 3 years, possibly 4 years old at the time, and the radar part of it went, and so basically they were building a new sign when they replaced that. So the company we use now, we're going on 2.5 years maybe, and so far so good. And their sign has been really easy to set up. I can watch it right here. I can actually watch it right now and see what speed people are going through Williamsville or on Route 30, how many cars are going through. It's a good setup.
Okay, great.
And does this new company have warranty or anything for failing?
I think they all have a 12-month warranty on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to gather data from those signs? So I know you can see it in real time, but do they collect the data? So if we wanted to see how many cars and the speeds, we could look at it?
Yep, I can pretty much print out anything.
It might be, at some point, that might be interesting.
Sure.
Yeah, for each of the village, or each sign.
And I can also, like when the sheriff's department or whoever you contract with decides to want to run radar, I can actually make the sign go blank, so it'll still record stuff, but that nobody will see anything. So it won't warn them.
Easier to catch them.
Sneaky.
All right. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor of Jay purchasing another sign and putting it in South Newfane near Adams Hill Road, say aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
And the only other thing is the, well, it's after the road report, but we didn't have any changes to the emergency plan for this year. So just need to sign that.
Okay, great. Is there a motion to accept the road foreman and commissioners report?
I make such a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good evening, Juanetta. Are you ready for your administrative assistance report?
Yes, I am.
You can take your mask off if you want to while you talk.
Ken Esty and Ed Druth would like permission, if it's required, to place a granite bench in honor of Josh Druth. It would be at the Newfane Cemetery, which is the second one next to his house, and to get permission to do some other cleanup tasks they wish to do around the stone wall near the road. Greg Record asked the select board to consider their nomination to appoint, their recommendation to appoint Martha Stillman to the Conservation Committee. Currently there's Greg, Michelle Mortimer, Carol Hasselbeck, and Jeff Mortimer. So this would make a 5-member committee. Thursday, May 12th will be the 5th annual Southern Vermont Economic Summit. It's an all-day learning, the network event for the community and business leaders to cultivate change in our community. Is this something that you would like me to register you for? I attached it to the back of my report. And then the last thing was I'd like to submit vacation time for May 23rd through the 31st. It's one of the months that has 5 weeks in it, so that's when I try to plan my.
It's a good weekend to do it.
Yeah.
Alright. I would say that's fine to take your vacation at that point. Can you just send us a reminder when we get closer, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think if we just, as a board on our own, read this training or the summit information and let Juanetta know when is the deadline?
I don't recall the deadline being listed. It could be in my email.
And this is different than the.
There's one, this isn't Mount Snow, and then there's one in Lake Maury at the end of May.
Yeah,
That's the one I hadn't.
that's different.
That's either in person or Zoom. Okay, just let Juanetta know if you would like to get registered for that. Is there a motion to appoint Martha Stillman to the Conservation Committee?
I'll make a motion to appoint Martha Stillman to the Conservation Committee.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
What does the Conservation Committee do?
They're the ones that set up for the trail down by the garage. They do some cemetery work.
I see. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
They come in and cut in the springtime, they cut the trail, any of the trees that have fallen, and just kind of take care of the trails.
I see.
Nice.
Great.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Right, and Ken SD, the Newfane Cemetery, which, is that the one up here?
Yeah, what road is that on?
Yeah, Newfane Hill Road.
Oh, Newfane Hill Road, okay.
Yeah.
It's called it's the second one because technically, you remember we visited
Yes.
the first one on the very top, but that's not the one we're talking about.
Okay.
It's the second one.
Is there a motion to accept the proposal by Ken SD and Ed Druth?
I make such a motion.
I second the motion.
Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Great. That's wonderful. Okay, is there a motion to accept the administrative assistance report?
I make such a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Any committee reports? Go for it, Ken.
Sure. Planning Commission?
Yes.
A few items. One is that the entire commission will be going to the Southern Vermont Economy Summit on May 12th. So we're all signed up and ready to go. So we'll be there. So we look forward to seeing you there as well. One big gathering. So meanwhile, the Planning Commission is working on the tiny home zoning bylaw revision. And so that's the major focus of our work right now. And we're on standby for, you know, all the meetings with the select board, with all of you, with respect to the ARPA recommendations. And also we're putting together a bit of a plan for what we're going to do for the rest of the year, 2022. So we have a list of a variety of projects which far exceed what we can manage, but nonetheless, it's a list of things that need to be done. You know, anything from floodplain bylaw revisions to enhanced energy planning. Remember that. So those are just a small sample of the number of projects, short-term rental, zoning bylaw revisions, or addition. So one thing I should say is that, and this pertains to the document that you gave to me from the Wyndham Regional Commission, Margot Gia. So that was a few meetings ago, and I did speak with Margot. And
remind me, what was the
and this
topic?
was about the energy audit.
Okay.
So we, and it would be through the select board naturally, that you would agree to or authorize, you know, as the town, the energy audit, which is free. And by virtue, and it's a collaboration, I think, between VLCT and Efficiency Vermont. And so by so doing, having this, the results of that energy audit would be potentially useful for us down the road when it comes to, you know, if there is to be any grant monies, you know, to help us with energy costs, you know, to have that audit done would enable us, it would put us further ahead in any kind of line, you know, associated with monies that could be on their way. Mm-hmm. So that's how Margot described it. So it seems, so that's like the most concrete benefit right up front. Naturally, there's the inherent benefit of understanding how we use our energy here. So, you know, based on my conversation with Margot, I would recommend that the select board go forward on this energy audit. And perhaps since, I don't know if I, you know, authorize me to be in contact with either any one of you or with Lynetta to turn it in a sense back over to you, and I'll tell me who to turn it over to, and I'll do that. Mm-hmm. But I also asked about the relationship between the energy audit and the enhanced energy by town plan revision that we had been working on. So just to update you on this whole town plan revision as it pertains to energy, is that if we were to go ahead and finish that town plan revision as it pertains to enhanced energy planning, it would give us as a town what's called substantial deference if the Public Utility Commission wished to place some manner of energy generation for which we don't have a lot of authority, apparently, as a town, if the PUC decides they want to site something somewhere here in town. But if we have an enhanced energy plan, which again has a lot of inherent values, you know, and, you know, with the Energy Commission and this and that, but the very concrete benefit is that we get substantial deference with respect to our relationship with the PUC if they were to decide that Newfane was a wonderful place to put energy generation, you know, of some manner. So there's no strict relationship between the energy audit document that you gave to me and the town plan revision as it pertains to enhanced energy planning. And that's why I took the document.
I remember.
Because I was trying to say, okay, what's going on? And they're related, but they are in fact two different projects or two different tasks.
Is there a time frame that you're looking at?
at least with respect to the energy audit, better that we should do this, we should sign up sooner rather than later, because other towns will also be interested in such, and we want to get in line.
Okay.
And then as far as the bylaw, the town plan revision, that's, that's another one of those.
It's a process.
Extended, it's a difficult extended process, and so ideally we should do it, much like we should get the zoning bylaw revision for the floodplain, because if we were to face another, I'll put it this way, difficulty, to understate it dramatically, another crisis, to put it, at its proper pitch, we would have more state money coming our way by so having this, bylaw revision for, floodplain. So, and these are just really difficult, very drawn out processes. It's a lot of work.
Could I ask a question in terms of the energy audit?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that would be useful for you to stay involved in and sort of manage, so to speak, on behalf of the town? Or do you have the time to do it? What is your recommendation?
Well, I think it's, as with a lot of things, for instance, with the DVFiber, you sign off on the audit, and then I think you have the authority to delegate, the relationship such that, the timing and the framework and all that, you could probably delegate that, such that the planning commission could see that through, because we wouldn't be doing the audit. It would just be being in contact and a relationship with you and with Juanetta, presumably Jay, and with Jay, and because they're going to be looking at all our public buildings and our public entities, so they're going to have to gain presumably access to, and I don't know what goes into it, but there will be administrative steps that have to be undertaken to accomplish that audit. So, and for all I know, that's about as much as I can say with any accuracy. So, I don't see that it's a problem for the planning commission to be helping out with that.
Okay.
But we'll still have to be definitely in contact with Juanetta around the implementation steps.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. So should we then contact them to sign up, or?
I would recommend, yes, that's exactly. I would recommend that Juanetta reach out to Margot Gia directly to sign up. However, I'll go home, look at that piece of paper again, and I can be in touch with Juanetta.
Okay.
That'd be great.
If you would wish to.
If you don't mind, that'd be great.
That would be great, and then we can get this started.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for following up on that for us.
Sure. So that's, as far as the planning commission is concerned, that's all that's going on.
Staying busy as usual.
Yes. That's all we're doing.
Could I just ask for I know it's complex and I know there are a lot of details. Is it appropriate at this time to just give a very brief summary of where things are with the tiny house zoning, or is that just, today's not the right time?
No, I think it's fair to say that, in our last meeting, we made a considerable amount of progress with just at the high level. With Kate being here, Kate's at the meeting, Jane had worked on an earlier proposal, and then Lynn did some research and was able to integrate her research into the earlier proposal, and now we're just going line by line through an existing document where we're making, line edits and revision, and I would say, optimistically, it's 2 meetings away from being ready. That's optimistic, but given the rate of progress that we made at the last meeting, it strikes me as within, it's I can just barely see it on the horizon that it's, ready for then the rollout. So that's optimistic. We're staring down summer, and we don't really. I think I can speak for the whole commission and say we do not want to be doing this throughout the summer. No way. That's an encouragement to all of us.
Get it done.
Yeah, to get it done.
Awesome. Thank you for all your hard work. You guys are always really busy.
Yes.
Is there anything further to report? Great. And now we will move to unscheduled members of the public. Anyone? With that, we'll move to old business with the Pollinator project, Be the Change. We'd like to welcome Patrick Kitchen. I believe he's on Zoom. Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so we had discussed this at our last meeting, and there were some questions that people had regarding this happening all along Dover Road and needing more information and details about the project.
Yeah.
So I see your email if you'd like to go further with that.
Yeah, so I can talk about the main gist of the project. So starting back in January, we started reaching out to towns of Vermont and gauging interest in the project that we started. So basically we're offering every town in Vermont up to an acre of pollinator habitat. And we would cover the labor and expenses for material and labor. And municipalities don't have to pay a penny. A lot of what we're trying to do is kind of educate Vermont on the importance of our native pollinators. And so a lot of recommendations, I guess, of what we've been saying to towns when thinking of locations is area with a lot of foot traffic, area that's currently mowed, so then we can cut down on mowed space and create habitat for insects. Yeah, that is the main gist of it.
That's a question.
Yes.
I have a question for you. The question that came up at our last meeting was, someone brought up the fact that their child was very allergic to bees. And so we were talking about having this on Dover Road, which is a main thoroughfare for us. And they were saying that their child rides their bike along Dover Road, and she was very worried because of the extent of his allergy. So I just wondered how you answered questions like that. And because where we have land is sort of like, I think the property on Dover Road was where a home was washed out in Irene. So there are homes on either side. How do you answer the question of the concern about the possibility of bee stings and the like? And is it like a good practice to first go out to the neighbors and just see, to make sure that the people who are living right there, because it is, they surround the property on either side, that this is not an issue for them? That was my question.
Yeah, so I will say almost, okay, you won't get a sting from a bee unless you are holding it in your hand and trapping it. All male bees don't have stingers on them. It's more like the honeybees that are social bees, and we don't create hives. These are our native pollinators. So 80% of our native pollinators are ground nesters. So they live in the ground, and they're solitary bees, so they're not part of a colony. Honeybees are from Europe, so we are not trying to educate about the honeybees. In my own personal opinion, I started working for Be the Change just last summer, and my job mainly pertained to working out in the fields, in the pollinator fields. We started in solar fields, and now we're branching out to doing town properties. And I didn't get a sting once walking around in the fields, but the summer prior to that, I worked painting houses, and I got stung about 3 times up on a ladder in a house by wasps. So it is not out of the question that you would get a bee sting.
Mhm.
However, I don't think you are more likely with a flower in the property next to you, basically, because there is bee habitat everywhere with flowers growing, but we definitely try to plant for specialists, so pollinators that need a specific plant to pollinate. Yeah. So it is a concern, and I definitely understand that concern. But I would say it is not very likely.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. I have a question about the seeds that you're using. I assume since you're attracting native bees that you are spreading native plant seeds. Is that true? And what is that mix?
Yeah, so we started with, so we use American Meadow seeds just in Shelburne off of Route 7. And we originally were using a seed mix that is regionally native. So regionally being native to the East Coast, and the most not native to Vermont flower that we had was Cosmos, which is originally in Texas. But that flower does not persist really past the first year. So basically our native flowers are the ones persisting and kind of out competing the Cosmos. But we are talking to American Meadows about using a different pollinator mix, because a lot of towns are really gung-ho about strictly natives. But yeah, it is kind of an interesting question to think about, specifically native to Vermont, because one, with climate change, we never used to have tiger swallowtail in Vermont, and now we're starting to create habitat for it because it's coming this far north. With the climates. It never used to, I think 15 years ago, it never used to get past Connecticut, and now I saw a good few last summer. But yeah, I can send you that list of the one that we're planning to use, and the one that we used to use as well.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And does somebody go around to these sites and periodically just to maintain them all and make sure everything is going according to the plan?
Yeah, so we're offering towns to do 2 years of work of maintenance on it. So the first year would consist, depending on, so it's the FEMA property that you have in mind?
Yeah.
So we'll probably, I'm assuming it hasn't been maintained or anything like that. Yeah. So we'll probably till it and seed a cover crop of oats and clover. And then the next year come in and till it again and plant the pollinator seed mix. Some areas where we've been going to where it's mowed grass, we've been getting a sod cutter and just taking out the sod and then planting the pollinator mix and kind of bypassing the cover crop stage. But yeah, so then that second year of pollinator mix, and then we would also hand plant some plugs and potted plants that we have. Yeah. And then it's pretty self-sufficient after that point. I would say in maybe 5 to 7 years, you'll probably just see a few species persisting and they've kind of succeeded. And and at that point, you might need to plant some more.
Okay. This property was severely damaged. There is no discernible topsoil left. It's just gravel with some trees coming through it at this point. Does that change your thoughts about it?
Nope. We definitely have areas where we are planning on bringing in compost. I would definitely love to see the area before we come in with the tiller, and we can kind of make a proper assessment of it. But yeah, I'm not too worried. And
oh yeah, there's a lot of knotweed.
There's also a bunch of knotweed in that area.
Love knotweed. Yeah, is it kind of around the whole area, or?
Yeah, knotweed is everywhere along the sides of our roads. We can get you in touch with Gloria Cristelli, who can give you a wonderful presentation about our knotweed situation in the town of Newfane.
Yeah, definitely spread.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Waitsfield, where we're planning on planting, they also have a knotweed problem. And our plan there is, because they've actually maintained the knotweed to the forest edge, we're planting next to the elementary school there. And we're planning on making a mowed path kind of in between the pollinator habitat and the knotweed to at least keep it at bay there. My understanding of knotweed is that, yes, you can never get rid of it, but you can kind of keep it in a certain area. Yeah, so that is my 2 cents, but yeah, I would definitely need to see the area. Something else about knotweed is that since it's hollow, it makes great habitat for cavity nesting bees, bees that need a existing hole from things like beetles and stuff like that are mainly in deadwood. But if you take knotweed that is it's a bit too wide for a lot of bees, but not all bees. And then if you take the grass that I forget its name, but basically the invasive grass that you see in any wetland that has the feathery tip to it, that's also hollow, and that has a good width for the smaller cavity nesting bees. And if you put it in, we have bee boxes that are about 1 foot by foot, but if you put them all in facing out, it creates good bee habitat for cavity nesting bees. So that's a good purpose for them that I can find, but yeah.
So would the plan be for you to come and look at the properties and then make a request for which one you would find the best? Or
do
what?
you have a couple options?
We do. There are 3 properties, all kind of side by side.
The Dover Road properties, yeah.
That total about a little over 4 acres. So
but they're not all next to each other, just right?
No. Well, the 2.5 acre property is the big one.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 are side by side. And they're not quite an acre. No, they're just down across from the Knolls.
Okay.
Side by side.
Yeah. And then the dump site is covered in solar panels, so I'm not sure about that one.
I will be driving south tomorrow to Weston, Londonderry, and Bellows Falls. And I could come to Newfane as well if that would work, if it's not too short of notice.
Well, providing we don't have 3 to 6, 8 inches of snow on the ground, it would be a great time. But that's what I'm looking at tonight.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Do you have a list of addresses or?
List of what?
Addresses that are possibilities?
Is this generated by us or by them?
Oh,
By us.
Okay.
The only one I would take up is the dump, honestly, because I don't think people can go up in there.
Okay.
One edit can email you this list of properties for you to get an idea of what is town owned, and then you can take a look at it and let us know what you want to do.
I think you'd need either a map to go with the addresses to be able to know exactly where it is.
I can see about getting a lister card or.
Oh, okay.
Or if you let us know when you're coming this way to look at them, somebody can be available to go on a field trip with you.
Yeah.
But probably not tomorrow.
Tomorrow's probably not going to be a great day.
Yeah.
After tomorrow, I probably won't venture down for a while, probably not until June, if that is any consolation. But if you send me the addresses, I would definitely love to come take a look.
Okay.
And that would be easy.
He can call me too. I can show him where the properties are.
Oh, thank you, Jay.
Jay, that's awesome. Great, and then we'll be in touch and have more conversation about it.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Thank you so much. Is there anything further for Patrick?
Could I just ask one question? I'm sure this is a big question, but a big answer. But the short answer, how did this organization start? What's sort of the background? And are you working just in Vermont or a larger area?
Yeah, so like I said, I just started last summer, but Tanya and Mike Kiernan, they live in Weybridge, Vermont, and they started the company about 7 years ago. Mike is an ER doctor in Middlebury, and Tanya is a pediatrician, and she has her own private practice. And they originally started as a for-profit, but if you talk to them about it, they will describe it as their third child that never wanted to graduate and just sort of ate up money. And so once it eventually made its money back, then they turned it into a nonprofit. And the initial idea was to make the unused space in solar fields into pollinator habitat. So we work with Encore and Green Mountain Power, are kind of our two bigger solar companies. And now that we have kind of gotten a groove in Vermont and people are actually expressing interest, because initially there really wasn't any interest in Vermont and it was kind of hard to get it started. We now figure it's like a good time to move into towns and kind of educate people. But this project we're planning on doing for 2 years, talking to towns and making habitat in downtown areas and stuff like that. And then after that, Mike has strong ambitions to venture out to Costa Rica and Puerto Rico, and kind of island secluded areas where pollinators are a lot more important, where if they lost their pollinators, it would be pretty detrimental to their economy with crops and malnutrition and stuff like that. And yeah, Mike and Tanya used to travel down to Haiti a lot, both as doctors. They did a lot of work down there, and I think they've seen malnutrition firsthand. And I think with pollinators potentially going away, that is coming up as a much more likely situation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's no more questions, I might sign out. But thank you so much for letting me tune into the meeting.
Well, thank you for being here, and we look forward to chatting with you after you get a chance to look at the areas.
Yeah, and if Jay, I think, is planning on meeting me, if Juanetta wants to email me his contact info, that would be awesome.
Perfect.
Great.
Along with the list of properties. Great, thank you so much.
Perfect. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
And now, welcome Julia Tadlock back. Good evening, glad to have you here. Thank you. Okay, are there any updates that you'd like to share?
I don't have any updates.
No updates? Okay, so this is back with asking for ARPA funds to help fund the Newfane flea market to come back. Is there anything from anybody on the board?
I would just like to suggest that as a town, I think we need to put together a process to evaluate proposals from businesses who may request ARPA funds. This is something that as a town we have never done before. We don't have a list of what documents to request. We don't have criteria to evaluate proposals. For me personally, I feel like that is important. I also feel like it's important to let other businesses in town know that this is something that we either are or are not willing to consider, so that others would have an opportunity to consider if they would like to make an application. So it would be my suggestion that we do some, as a select board, that we do some research into finding out what would be a reasonable process. I remember many years ago that the Strolling of the Heifers had a grant program that they offered, where they gave once a year, I believe, they would give a grant to one business that was starting up. And I tried looking online to see if and they're not in existence anymore, Strolling of the Heifers. I couldn't find any paperwork of what they had previously required, but I would think that we could find that out, or that by contacting others in the area, we could figure out a reasonable process and put that together, and then let it be known to people that this would be something that the town would consider.
Mm-hmm.
And that in addition, we could also consider the possibility of deciding, what percent of the ARPA funds we might want to reserve for local businesses. So I'm making up a number, this is not like a recommendation, but let's say we're going to say 10% of the ARPA funds we would make available for local businesses. We could, and once we have criteria and we have a process and a way of evaluating applications, then it really could be done almost on a rolling basis. It's not like everything would have to be in, let's say, by September, and we would decide by November. Because the ARPA funds are available over I think we have 2 years in which to decide how to spend the money. You have to decide how you're spending it. You don't actually have to have finished spending it in those 2 years. We would have time to sort of, to go through this process and allow people to come forward and make requests. So that would be my suggestion at this point in time.
That's reasonable. Anyone else?
I think I would agree with that. It's unfortunately this has to be democratic, and democracy moves pretty slow. So I know you've come to us, but a month isn't really enough time for us to build this infrastructure, to set everything up and have a plan of exactly how we would justify what business gets what, and I do think it would be important if we were going to put, say, 10% of this towards, municipally funding local businesses. It would have to go out to all the local businesses, and it would have to be something that everybody had a chance to put an application in and to make a case. I do want to see the flea market go forward and function and be great, but I think as far as we go, I don't know if I could stand behind putting the ARPA funds there right now. My opinion.
Were you able to get in touch with the contact from?
I looked into it a little bit. I don't think that's available for me.
Okay.
This area.
Anyone else? So at this, not to go away from the Newfane flea market, but to start this process, I have not been involved in how one starts that process, so how do we do that?
I think it would be a matter of contacting some other folks to see what they have done. I know, again, a lot of my business work comes from Long Island, so I know like how some of the processes that are used on Long Island. I could try to contact similar groups here in Vermont to try to find out. I don't mind doing that research. I just have to say I am in the middle of a huge project at work, so I can't do this for another 3 weeks, but unless there's someone else who wants to do it in the interim, I'd be happy to share how I would go about doing it if someone else wants to do it, or else I could start looking into it in about 3 weeks.
I have the faintest idea.
Yeah,
Probably not a good choice.
I'm also pretty buried in my work right now.
Yeah.
It would definitely be.
Well, that's the thing, is we're all very busy. I got regular jobs and working into this. I know. Oh, that's a good point. Juanetta reminded us about our consultant, that we were talking about having a consultant to help us figure out how to spend and use the, but we didn't hire anybody. Is there any way to go back to that?
Do we have use of one with,
Thank you, Juanetta.
what's the larger group that we can make use of there? No, the local one.
Wyndham Regional.
That one.
I can go talk to them. I think through Wyndham Regional and BLCT perhaps, and BDCC, trying to reach the folks who used to run Strolling on the Heifers.
Orally Monday.
Yes. Are you friends with her?
I can send her, I can shoot her an email tomorrow.
That would be great, because if we could understand what process they use, that would be tremendously helpful. And I think if we could just sort of gather some of that information, we can go from there.
Okay. But back to the flea market, it's a wonderful, wonderful idea, and to have it come back is amazing. I agree with Ann and Jeff, is that we do need to think about the town as a whole and all of the businesses that have been affected and what the ARPA money is to be used for. And until we come to with a process, I think the board is kind of stuck at the moment. And it's, I hate to say that, but is that how the board feels?
Yeah.
That we'll still keep the conversation.
I don't feel great about it, but
we'll keep the conversation
also
going, and we'll have more information as we keep going on now that this is coming up. But how does the board does not feel about giving out any substantial amounts of money until we come up with a process?
That would be my opinion.
And we'll keep it on our agenda every meeting and keep talking about it till we come up with something that, you know, affects everyone.
So in that event, would I then resubmit proposals and all that stuff, or, I mean?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, we'll do research and come up with something that, you know,
Gotcha.
will benefit everybody in the town. It's just hard to place with one and not make with all, if that makes any sense.
right, we don't have parameters, so we can't. We don't have anything that's binding to discuss, you know. And I don't feel awesome about that, but I do understand and recognize that we need to really do be patient with this.
Okay, so just for me, going forward, it would be great to like just have communication over, you know, email, I guess, just because I don't necessarily want to come back to every select board meeting.
That's understandable too. Yeah, but just keep emailing emailing us.
2-3 months. Okay,
And then
so
when we
will
have
you
some-
email me when there's a
When we have something to
Okay.
pass along, we'll
okay.
have Juanetta send you an email to let you know that this is what's going to be talked about if you want to be here for it.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much. Thanks.
Well, thank you. All right, is there anything further on that subject? Work in progress.
Yeah.
And next we'll move on to new business, and you have the floor, Jeff.
All right. So they've taken down the arch bridge, and there is a large quantity of steel that has come out of it. I don't exactly know how much of it has been saved at the town yard yet. I need to get over and take a look. But I would propose that we come up with a plan for some of that. Potential uses could be to create some art to go at the walking paths, the town forest walking paths, create some benches around town for places to sit. We have a lot of great artisans in the community. I think it would be great to see if we could put it out there and get some ideas of what people might want to create with it and how we could use that.
So how might it work? You'd say that here's the the iron is available, and how would you request using it, or how much would you need, and would we be giving them funds to build?
Well, I think we would have to be giving them funds to build something. You know, this is just an idea that I had while
Yeah, I
sitting
think it's
next
really
to the bridge,
cool,
watching them take all this really cool old twisted iron out of the bridge.
It's 112-year-old steel.
Yeah, it's good steel.
It's good steel.
Jay, how much do you have in the garage now?
It's probably about the size of one of our bigger dump trucks, one of those loads.
So there's a lot of
there's not a lot of straight stuff in it. I was kind of looking at it, so it has to be somebody far more creative than I.
We have a couple of
And it does tend to break easily because it's very high tensile strength. So they need to kind of know how to work with it, but I'm sure there's something that can be done.
Yeah.
Putting that out there, and anybody who is interested in possibly coming up with a project could reach out to Jeff.
Of course.
And anybody who knows any artists that work with that stuff, let them know, and then they can submit whatever to us, and we can go forward with it.
What if you took the ideas, put it together, and then if we wrote a press release?
That sounds great.
Got it out to the newspapers and front porch.
Another thought I had was ornamentation for the new bridge, like maybe hanging flower baskets along the side, or
that's a neat idea.
Something like that.
Those are great ideas. If you want to put together your ideas in any form, I would sit with you and could help craft a
That'd be great.
Press release that we could then bring here to the select board to review. And then once we get it all ironed out, so to speak, we could then send it to the newspapers. And
that sounds great.
I think it's a fabulous idea.
All right.
I think it's a really cool idea.
Hold on to that steel, Jay. Is there anything further on that project that anybody'd like to chime in on? All right. And we have no correspondence. And if there's nothing else, we will go right to pay orders. I would like to thank everyone for being here this evening, and stay safe. Have fun in the snow if it snows.
May I make a recommendation that we suspend and go into Board of Liquor Control? Because there's a number of those, and it would just, he would be able to leave.
Okay. Yep. That makes a good idea. So we will suspend our meeting and go right into our Board of Liquor Control. But as I was saying, stay safe, be healthy, and have a great night.